In this video, part 2 of our series of uploading documents for RTP into eFaculty, we focus mainly on the mechanics of uploading materials to eFaculty for your dossiers. I'm going to log into the eFaculty system by going to one.sgsu.edu and clicking on the tile for eFaculty. I have already logged into one SJSU earlier today, so I think this will take me directly, yes, took me directly into eFaculty, and I didn't need to redo the dual authentication. Once in eFaculty, I go to the Activities tab, and in that Activities tab, I will see all of the folders and a couple of extra, but all the folders that I need for RTP. The first 5 folders in your Activities tab in Faculty 180 are the review folders that we've established to allow faculty to upload different types of material for different types of review. So the first 4 of these tabs, one for annual and cumulative, one for range elevation, one for mini review, one for post-tenure review. Those 4 are not necessary and they won't show up in your dossier. The one that you're interested in to begin with is review, retention, tenure, promotion, dossier front matter. It is in this area that you're going to upload 4 things. First is the chair's description. Second, if you've had a tenure clock stop or an extension of the probationary period due to COVID, you would upload the memo there. You will put your department guidelines here if there are any. And then finally, you're going to upload the index to this dossier, which is a listing of every item that you enter into the dossier. The index serves as a placeholder for these items in your personnel action file. So after the review is over, the index is going to be saved with some of the other front matter and with all of the evaluations in your personnel action file. And it's going to say what was included in your dossier without us having to save all of those materials in the file for you. So it's really important that everything in the dossier gets listed in the index. Now, one other thing I want to point out to you is a couple of things that you'll see in every one of these tabs. When you open the tab, you will see some instructions. Those instructions are consistent with what you see in the What Goes Where guide. And there's going to be an add button. And that add button has to be clicked every time you want to upload material to eFaculty. For every upload, there's going to be what we call a date stamp. You're going to have to say to what period of time does the material belong. That's really important because when your dossier is taken over into the RPT system for reviewers to look at, RPT is going to select out only items that are date stamped within the period of review. So if you don't have the correct date on the item, it may not show up in the dossier as intended. So in the front matter area, you're going to choose fall 2021. And you can leave the second as ongoing. And you'll select what type of item you're uploading to front matter. Now, recall that I mentioned there were 4 things that you could upload here. There's a list of more than that because as a legacy to prior reviews in eFaculty, we left some of the other items that candidates may have uploaded and may still have under their front matter area. So we are asking that anyone who's new to eFaculty only upload these 4 items, but if you have other material in front matter from prior evaluations, you can continue to use this area for those things. So anyway, if you were going to upload your chair's description, you would just choose chair's description, and then you would click to upload the file, and you would find the file in your collection of files on your computer, and you would just say upload to this area. You're just going to choose the one that is applicable, and you're going to upload the file associated with that. When you've added to your dossier, you can continue working in that area if you check save and add another. You've uploaded something, you want to continue uploading. You could also say save and go back. And what's going to happen is that you will be taken back to the front area. Or you could just say save and you could continue working in that area. So after adding an item to that area, you'll see that over the add button, now there's a new line that says that we've added the chair's description of academic assignment. I may have accidentally added a blank field here. So I'm going to go ahead and see this circle X. I'm going to hit that, and I'm going to delete a prior entry that I just accidentally made. If I wanted to edit the entry that I just made, I would click on the little blue pencil right here, and it's going to take me back to the page that we were just looking at. And you can see here is the file that I uploaded. I could delete it by hitting the little X, or I could view it by hitting the little eyeball. That would download it to my computer, and then I can open it and look at it again. Okay, so I've shown you the front matter part of the dossier, and you'll upload those 4 items here. After the front matter, we have your appointment letter. That is the initial letter that you signed to agree to work at San Jose State. And if there have been any addenda to that letter, you will add those here as well. You will want to add the prior evaluations and reviews that you might have had since since joining us here. If you're undergoing retention review, that would be year 1, 2, and 3. Unless, of course, you had service credit, it might just be year 1, and then year 2 being the retention year. If you're in year 6 or year 7 because of an extension, you're going to add everything up to your appointment date, or if you had service credit, the date of your service credit, which will be 1 or 2 years, beginning the first duty day, 1 or 2 years prior to your appointment semester, that first fall semester that you were with us. There's a lot of information here on the prior evaluations, and our guidance on the University Personnel website tells you even more about what's expected in the prior evaluation review. You will have a narrative statement. This is the 2,000 word or less statement, which summarizes your career since appointment or service credit until now, where you make the case for the deserving of award of retention or award of tenure and promotion. So this is the area, it's a very important area. If you need help framing your argument for why you should be tenured and promoted, then you'll want to seek out the assistance of the Center for Faculty Development, and they should be able to help you to frame an argument for a successful review. The next area is the curriculum vitae area, and it is here that you would want to upload that curriculum vitae for the reviewers to be able to see your trajectory as a scholar. I will also make a note that you really should strive to have your curriculum vitae organized in the same way as your dossier. So the order of material, the way you refer to things, the naming of items on your CV ought to also be reflected in the dossier. Do make a conscious effort to align your curriculum vitae with the representation of your career in your dossier. You can see that I've uploaded a Vitae here, and it's good to go. The next area begins the teaching, service, and RISCA part of the dossier. So here you have an opportunity for academic assignment or teaching to include a supplemental narrative, one that goes beyond your candidate statement and goes into a little bit more depth about your success as a teacher or as a counselor or as a librarian. You'll want to write that statement in full, and then when you come here, you will want to then date stamp that for this semester. As a little tip, you can leave this particular narrative box blank, but you could also write your narrative here. You could copy and paste from the document that you created it on and just enter it here as a direct entry item. But I'd say most candidates prefer to just click upload, find their narrative for teaching, and then add it to this section as a document that will display. This is probably as good a time as any to note the difference between direct entry and file upload. In eFaculty, you are often given an opportunity to just direct enter information about yourself. And that is perfectly normal to do in eFaculty. Rather than uploading a document, you can type directly into your interface to report what it is that you're trying to convey. That, however, will show up in a different location than will a file upload. And so that is something you might want to strategize about when you're deciding on whether you're going to direct enter or upload files, because it's going to display differently to the reviewers. I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to show you the difference in the way direct entry versus file upload appears. I am now in the reviewer's interface in review, promotion, and tenure. And I'm looking at information that I direct entered into a text box. And you can see that this direct entry just kind of shows up as text in what we call the Faculty 180 Vitae. I also uploaded this same information as a document. And so I'm going to click on that here in the left panel where all of the attachments are found in the RPT. You see, this was a form that I filled out. This text is the text that I direct entered into eFaculty. And you can see how it may be visually appealing in this case to have entered information on this form rather than direct entering that information here. So you take visual preferences and you decide whether something is important enough to show up as an attachment where people will see a visual layout versus whether that information is actually okay being entered just directly into the system, typed in, so that the reviewer can read it upon looking through the dossier summary material here in the Faculty 180 Vitae. Okay, returning to the activities section of eFaculty, I've got my narrative taken care of. Now I want to look at the tabs for teaching and academic assignment. And you're going to see that there's a tab for classes taught at SJSU. This tab is pre-populated by UPFS with help from IT to make sure that all of the classes that you taught during the period of review show up automatically without you having to enter them. There's also an area where attachments can be added to classes. You can see that this class, there's a little number right here, a little blue number, it has a link. This class has a syllabus attached to it. I'm going to cancel that. So keep in mind then that you can attach syllabi by adding add to each class that you have listed. The recommended preference is that you don't add syllabus for every class, but rather you add a representative syllabi, one for each course topic, probably for the latest one that you taught. I found this so attached to this class, and where it shows up is under course evaluation. That's a term used by Interfolio, our vendor. To the right, there's a blue one. It's a link to the SOAP. So let me see, I'm going to open that, see if I can get it. That's the SOAP from a class, from that class, already preloaded into the system. I didn't have to do anything to get that class in there. Now, if I were following policy and wanted to delete a SOAP, because I taught enough classes with SOAPs, or it was spring 2020 and I could delete any of them, that to delete them, I would just click on the little blue X, and that little blue X would remove that SOAP from this class and it would never show up again. And so anyway, you could add other material to the class. Any sort of examples you want to attach to a particular class can be added here just by clicking add and saying you're adding a file. You're going to choose that file. You're going to select what kind of attachment it is. Is it a syllabus or a course evaluation or some other type of evaluation or some other type of example? Maybe it's a test from the class or it's an activity. Whatever you want, you can put there and attach it to your class. So that's the teaching in the all-important SOATs area. I'm going to jump around just a little bit, and I'm going to wander over to another tab where you might find SOATs, especially if you were teaching in winter session, and that's under the tab called Additional Student Evaluations. So it's possible that there may be other classes SOATs that were uploaded here because we couldn't find them anywhere else in your schedule. And it's also a location where you might add classes that are missing from your schedule. Here you can't delete classes and you can't make changes to them. All you can do is alter the attachments. So if there are errors here, you'll want to contact eFaculty@sjsu.edu to request a change. But if your only error is that classes are missing, or that you want to add summer classes or winter classes that might not show up here, then you'll come over to this additional student evaluations area and you just type in those classes. And that's a way of supplementing missing classes without contacting us. This other tab here, classes taught at other institutions, is what it looks like. It's for you to enter in information about any classes you may have taught elsewhere if you had service credit, or if there was something in your assignment that led to you teaching somewhere else during the review period. You may upload them here. You would type in all the information, you date stamp, and then give all the information about the class. And then you would upload any attachments, such as the student evaluations from that location, or a syllabus for that class. You'd attach it here. All right, so I'm going to return to the menu, and I'm going to start moving a little bit faster, because you'll see, and you've probably already noticed, there's a common theme with each of the areas. It's instructions, add, enter date stamp, and enter information, and perhaps add an attachment. Now, here's an important section called Direct Observations of Teaching. This is where all of your peer observations, when a colleague comes in and reviews your class and gives you an official review, those are added here. Just as a little note, the timetable for reviews is in this tab. And for anyone who wants to go up for full professor, as an associate professor, you need to have 2 direct observations of teaching in your file. So if you have only 1, you might ask for a second one now. So it could be a summer class, it could be this semester's class. Get your department chair to assign direct observation to you so that you can have official direct observations. We then have a section for assigned time. If you want to add information there, you're going to date stamp, and then you're going to fill out how many hours, at what level, university, division, college, department. So your RISCA assigned time, you'll want to put in here, and you'll direct enter the information about that assigned time, or you can upload the letter giving you that assigned time. All assigned time should be reported in this area because it is a purchasing, as you will, of teaching time. And so that teaching time needs to be accounted for here. You can enter information about accomplishments related to this assigned time elsewhere in the dossier. So from there, there's one more tab, and this is mainly used by librarians and counselors, but also a lot of department chairs will use this area to talk about other academic assignment that may not have been teaching, that gives the full picture of what they were asked to do and what they accomplished with their time. That concludes the teaching section, or the academic assignment section of the dossier. Then we move to the service section. Once again, there's an option to direct enter or upload a narrative. You're going to date stamp, and then you're going to provide an explanation of your service activities that goes into much more depth and fine-tunes the information compared with the narrative for the entire dossier. So this section is limited to explaining your service activities. And then service is broken into categories, and you're going to want to add your service to the appropriate categories. Again, how would I know what the appropriate categories are? You get a hint from the tab, you get a hint from the What Goes Where guide, but you also get a hint from the description at the top of the tab before you add your material. I'll give you this example: committee service to university divisions. Okay, this is where you report department, school, college, and university committees on which you have served. Descriptions of committees' charge and scope, leadership and or role on committee, and significant accomplishments are expected and encouraged when the committee's work is not routine. So if it's already understood by everybody what the committee is, you don't have to give as much detail. But if it's really somewhat novel of an experience, then you might provide more explanation. Here's a date stamp for when did you start on that committee? Are you still on it, or did it end a couple of semesters ago? You'll want to determine which branch of the university you were working with. Is it academic affairs? Probably. Is it the academic senate, or is it your college, or is it your home department? You follow the branch until you find the correct place. And then we have a list of committees that is routinely updated to help you find the committee that you likely served on. But if you didn't serve on any of those on the list, you can still choose other, and then you can name the committee here. That will show up as a direct entry item in the dossier. Then you'll want to say whether you were a member or a chair or some other role on that committee. And you have the option to upload a file, although we often don't expect to see uploads in this area. But if a committee is novel and people don't know about it, you're highly recommended to upload a file that explains the committee's work and the work that you did to advance the efforts of the committee. Okay, so we're going to go back now. There are other ways that you can serve. You might have university service that wasn't on a committee. And so there you would have an obligation to name what it was, name the level, and describe. So when you hit add, you're going to have that opportunity to date stamp, give a title to what you did, a level, and then describe. And if you want to, you can upload an attachment that will bring in a PDF of an explanation for that particular committee. But in this area, most people would limit themselves to just direct entry descriptions. We then have academic advising. You understand this fairly well. You will enter information. You'll date stamp, enter the number of advisees in each category. You could also just date stamp and then note a level and upload a file, give you a representation of several semesters in just one document. All right, so then we have student supervision, which is more intensive than academic advising. It's actually literally working with the students on their projects. There's a description here, and you can add items just like in other areas. You've got service to the community where you can enter information just like before. We've got service to the profession or the discipline, same thing, adding information as before. And then we have the listing of professional organizations, and same as before, you're going to date stamp time ranges, you're going to name the organizations you were in, and then you're going to leave it like that, or you're going to upload a file that provides more background information. Okay, then we get to the research, scholarship, and creative activities area. Again, you have a narrative section where you can upload a narrative about your research or your scholarship. And then we have probably what is sometimes the most confusing area to people, but it's the place where one uploads files that demonstrate your research and scholarship accomplishments. And it is literally meant to hold all of your output. So if it's a book, if it's a presentation, if it's a patent, if it's a new software program, anything that you've produced as a San Jose State scholar or during those service credit years gets entered in here, and you are expected to provide a copy of everything that you list. So you're going to list items. You aren't limited to text. You could also upload visuals. You could even add links, and those links could take folks to online publications, or it could take them to online videos. You have a lot of options here to take people to establishment sites where your products are being hosted and are available for the reviewers to actually review, either watch them, read them, and to analyze them while in the eFaculty interface. So you're going to be asked here when you click add in the RISCA area to select what type of activity or outcome or product you are going to upload. In my field, it's always journal publication for me. But for others, I mean, it could be presentations at conferences. It could be something not listed here, in which case you would select other and then go on to describing it. There are some options for importing information about your work. So you may look for ways to bring in that information. But when entering your RISCA material, let's start with, is this product in progress? Is it submitted? Is it under R&R? Has it been accepted? Is it out in press? Is it a past product? Or is it something that you gave up on or abandoned? You discontinued it, but yet because of the nature of evaluation at San Jose State, we try as much as possible to give credit for good efforts that people made that may not have actually made it into the outlets that we normally place our products. So then you are going to want a date stamp. So the date stamp should refer to that status. So if you're doing work that's in progress, you're going to date stamp for the current fall semester. So it may seem counterintuitive, but you aren't going to date stamp for the publication date in the future, because that publication in the future is not going to be pulled into your dossier. Your date stamp actually needs to literally say the semester that the item was completed or where you are in the process and the current semester. The next thing you're asked for is the title. And then what is the outlet that's housing it? Then you're going to be asked for the month. You could say an anticipatory date here. If it's been accepted, you could say, well, it's going to come out September of 2022. And that's permitted here because this date is referencing the actual publication, whereas that date is date stamping for inclusion in the dossier. Here's where, now that we have the all-important DOI numbers, you can enter the DOI of the publication here. You enter your author name. If you have co-authors, you can add co-authors here, and then you tell us the percentage of the contribution for the co-author. Interestingly, we also have the option of editor. And if you happen to co-author with a student, you then can mark that they are a student author. And that's really important for those departments that value co-production of material with our students. So co-authored scholarship with students, there is a way to indicate that here. I also always advise people, if there are other places that this information is asked for, like in the CV, that they highlight the fact that they published with students in those other places. Now, I said before that you could add a URL. You could actually literally have your video hosted at Vimeo and then include the Vimeo link here. You could also say it's a URL and then have, if it's in one of those online journals with open access, your reviewers could just click on the link to read it instead of you having uploaded a copy of it here. That's okay to do. But you just have to know, that you are responsible for getting into the hands of the reviewers everything that you say you've produced. So if the URL has a paywall or could block the reviewers, you do not want to provide a URL. Instead, you should upload a copy of the material yourself, or if it's multimedia, then you need to find a hosting location where you can house that material and link the reviewers to that location. There's an option to include a description of the item in your output, that area that was called the Faculty 180 Vita for reviewers. You can direct enter information right here. If you are uploading a copy of the item, however, you probably don't really need this description because there will likely be an abstract or description on the item itself. And reviewers don't really need to read the description here and then go and read the same description on the item itself. There are some links to different styles for publications. So if you want your citation to look a certain way, you can organize it. I would always choose American Sociological Association. And then, it's going to automatically populate a citation for you, given the information that you provided above. Now, at this point, you're going to select the type of activity that you are representing here. If I were going more in the direction of professional reviews of organizations, I might choose professional instead of just purely academic or research. But then we also want to tell our reviewers what type of review did this material receive? Was it blind peer reviewed? Was it peer reviewed but in an unblinded process? Was it editorially reviewed? Was it an invited item? And you can only really select one, you can't select multiple. So you need to select the one that best describes the way this material was judged. What is the reason for this? It's because as faculty under review, we have responsibility to tell the reviewers whether something has been evaluated yet or not. Because in RTP policy, if something has already been evaluated, then we can accept the quality of that item as similar to what we would expect in the journal or the outlet that is being represented here. So we can make some assumptions about the quality of the work if it has already experienced some type of review. But if it's an item that has never been reviewed, then the evaluators may have to seek out their own opinions about the quality of the work. So they have a greater responsibility to read or watch the material. And they may even decide, well, I'm not qualified to make a good review of this, so we're going to ask for an external reviewer to take a look at this material and let us know what they think of the quality of that material. And finally, in area C here, you have an upload file area, and this is where you would upload the example of the material you just described. If it's an article, you'll upload a print of the article unless you had a URL to it. You will upload any other information about that. You might upload peer reviews of that item. So if the book author wrote to you and gave you some feedback on it and gave you a statement of review and the quality of the article or the chapter or the book itself, you can upload that file here. And then you'll want to save and go back or return. And when you are finished entering information, or if you're just taking a break, you'll see the list of things that you've entered for review. This is probably the folder where you're going to spend the most time, and it's probably well worth your time to make sure that you get all the information in this area correct. We have a separate tab for grants, and it works similar to the Research, Scholarship, and Creative Activities tab. It's a little less complicated, but it still has some complexities related to it. And like the other, you'll have a status, you'll have a date stamp, and then you'll have the title and information about it, and your name and description and other stuff related to the grants that you've applied for. And then there are a few closing sections for honors and awards. If you got that Nobel Prize, you'll definitely want to mention it here. If you've engaged in professional development activities, you can enter that information here. If you happen to have professional employment in the field, that is something that reviewers are interested in. You should be proud of that, and you should list the professional employment you're engaged in. And if you have some accomplishments in those areas, then you should feel free to display them here, especially if they help to advance the narrative about your career and the success that you're having as an expert in the field that you're in. There's an opportunity to put a consulting work in here as well. And there's finally, the last tab is for entering external career reviews. Now, a lot of faculty would like for someone outside of SJSU to evaluate their research or their scholarship and give an opinion about it. But SJSU doesn't have a policy requiring that. So with that in mind, around this time of year, a lot of faculty will turn to their associate deans and they'll ask about getting peer reviews into their dossiers. So you should work with your associate dean if you are interested in having someone in your field do an external review so that you can then have those added to the dossier. A word of caution, don't just go out and ask a friend to give you an evaluation and then upload it here. That's going to probably detract from people's evaluation of your file. What you'll want to do is be able to demonstrate that working with a partner like your associate dean, you were able to solicit an external evaluation that you had no input into generating, that they requested on your behalf, and that was sent to them. You would date stamp it, so it would probably be fall. And if you got it a couple of years ago, it would just be maybe from a prior semester and then ongoing, and then it's an external review, and you would just upload it here as just like any other file upload. And so with that, the final tab in your dossier, that is all that you are responsible for. There are a few pointers about this system that I want to make you aware of. One is, whatever you name the file is what they will see. So you don't want a file that said my dean is horrible, docx, then the dean is actually going to see how you name the file. So just be careful about the naming of file attachments when you upload things. Also, you aren't required to have an entry in every tab in the dossier. So you might have service to the community, but you might not have, let's see, service to the discipline to add. I mean, you probably do, but if you don't, that's okay. You don't have to or add something to this area. And if you don't add something to a section, if you leave it blank or empty, that header will not show up for reviewers. If you do add something, the header will show up to reviewers. So the dossier in the end will have these titles, these sections. You can refer to them in your narratives. You can direct people to them, but you don't have to have them. And so if there's nothing under other academic assignment, then other academic assignment isn't going to show up to the reviewers. They're not going to expect to see that from you. Those are a couple of little points to keep in mind about when thinking about eFaculty. All right, I'd like to show you one more thing in eFaculty. After you've entered your information and before the case is generated that allows you to see the reviewer's perspective of your dossier, you can always go to the area called Betas and Biosketches under the Faculty 180 packet. You would scroll down to Retention, Tenure, and Promotion, Dossier. You'd click on the blue eyeball to the far right, and then you'll get the Faculty 180 beta that's generated for reviewers. The thing is, you need to make sure that you've gotten your appointment dates correct so that the period of review is correct. And then you can export what you generate as a Word document, a PDF. You can generate it as a web link and have someone else go in and look at your dossier. This is a way in which you can share a dossier prior to the ability to snapshot it in the window for the reviewers. So after refreshing my Vita, you can see that I have a header. I have a whole bunch of front matter information here. And then we go down, we have my CV, classes taught at SJSU. You can see anything with a blue link has an attachment under it, either syllabus or other material I might have added. You can see my direct observations of teaching. All of these things are what the reviewers will see as direct entry on the Faculty 180 Vita. All of the blue things are the attachments. And unfortunately, in this side of the system, in Faculty 180, you can only see attachments if you download them, but you can at least see where you have attachments for information in your dossier. It is only after a case has been generated for you, that you could go in to your packets. And when we open the dossiers, this is what will happen. You will go into your packets. You'll click on what's available to you there. And there will be a blue bar button to the far upper right called Preview Packet. And when you click that button, Preview Packet, you will see exactly what reviewers will see for retention, tenure, and promotion with your dossier. We want you to be successful. So after kind of helping you to find the right location for your material in eFaculty, I want to encourage you to talk with your chair, talk with your dean early, not in the last week before dossier closing, and understand your department and college culture. Work with them to get a general sense of how your college typically approaches representing success in the three areas of responsibility. You should try to talk to your department colleagues and ask them what belongs and what doesn't belong in a dossier. I encourage you to share your dossier with other people in your department, to ask them, hey, look at my dossier, would you please? What do you think about how I framed my work here? And some of them will have reviewed you in the past, and so you should ask them if they see improvement in your story. You should definitely begin working on the dossier early, not wait for the dossier opening to start adding things. We encourage you to think from the perspective of the reviewer. So as soon as you get a chance, when the dossier opens and your chair is invited to work with you in looking at the dossier, you'll have the opportunity immediately to see what the reviewers see when your case is generated. We also want to remind you to document every claim of achievement for the period of review. There should be an entry in one of the tabs for everything that you say that you've done, and go through your Vita and see, did I list everything in my dossier that's in my Vita? And by the way, did I list everything in my Vita that's in my dossier? So you want to create that alignment. So you just want to work on documenting everything. And that's why we say you should be in Faculty 180 regularly, updating your materials as your career unfolds before you, because every accomplishment is easy to forget as you get busy creating new accomplishments. Finally, keep in mind the option to hyperlink. So you can store videos on outside vendors' sites, and you can then hyperlink to those. You can go to other media, you can go to 3D representations of your sculptures. You can show many things in media now in the eFaculty interface that weren't possible before. You could even have links to videos of yourself teaching classes or giving talks. So just remember that you could be creative in your use of media to use that tool to show the power of your effect on the discipline, or the power of your effect on students or others in the community. So be creative there. Remember, you're organizing your material into three areas. You're using the folders to help the reviewers organize their thinking about your career. Finally, I want to say that UP Faculty Services is here to help you. If you need any help with your dossier, you can email efaculty@sgsu.edu, and the staff will respond to you. So that's a joint email account for multiple persons on staff who are eager to get in and work with you. Also help from the vendor, and Interfolio is our vendor. They have a help email address similar to ours, where you can email at any time and ask questions if you're having technical problems. But they also have a phone number that you can call and ask questions about technical problem as well. So you're welcome to direct contact them or to direct contact us. as a service to you, I also want to let you know that this year we added Junie Urbano to our team. And you can contact Junie with questions about RTP, and he will get back with you as soon as possible. So Junie's email address is junie.urbano@sjsu.edu. And you can call Junie at this phone number, and he will be more than happy to assist you with your issues in eFaculty. So with that, I want to thank you for taking the time early to learn about how to organize a dossier, and to paying attention to the evaluation process to help your colleagues, to help the university provide a fair and full evaluation of the work that you've done as a scholar representing San Jose State University. Good luck in the process.